Hi, everyone. So nice to see you back here at Study English with Frank. Today we are going to learn how to count and say numbers into the trillions. Are you ready? Let's go. All right, what do you think? Can we do it? Can we learn how to say numbers, how to count into the trillions in English in one lesson? Well, actually, you really do need the foundation of lesson one and number two in this series before we can really go forward. And so, if you've just stumbled upon this lesson, I really encourage you to go back and find lesson one and two in this series. The way that you can do that is just in any Google window, type in Study English with Frank, and that'll take you to our YouTube channel. And then look for the menu item that says playlists. Hit the playlist button and then look for the playlist that deals with learning how to count in English, learning the numbers. Play that. You'll find lesson one and two there because it's really important that you know lesson one and lesson two, how to count into the ones, how to count into the tens, how to count into the hundreds before you study this lesson, because we're going to be using that information, that knowledge, over and over again today. And so if you don't know how to count to 999 in English, you'll be a little bit lost in this lesson. But if you have studied those lessons already, let's go. The first thing that I want to have us learn is some new vocabulary words. Many of you will already know these, but I think it's important to lay this foundation before we start learning how to say the numbers. So, last time we learned up into the hundreds. We got to 999. Today we're learning the vocabulary word thousand. It's what comes after hundreds. 1,000 looks like this. After the thousands, the next number, the vocabulary word that we need to learn is millions. This is a familiar word. I'm sure that you have heard it before. People talk about wanting to become a millionaire, right? That's somebody who owns property and cash that is more than $1 million. A millionaire. Used to be a big thing. Today, it doesn't mean that much anymore. Even to buy a house in Canada today is over $1 million usually. After we talk about counting into the millions, the next one up, you've probably heard this as well, 1 billion with a B. Billion. We have 1,000, a million, and then 1 billion. Billion. And we can count into the billions a long ways. But eventually we will get to the next level, which is trillion. Trillion. Not too many people are trillionaires. In fact, I don't think anybody is. It's only countries that talk about spending or being in debt into the trillions of dollars. But we might use it in math a lot. As we're working out our problems in math or in physics, we'll often talk about numbers into the trillions and need to be able to look at a number and decide if it is in the trillions or not, so that we can say it out loud, say the number just by looking at the digits on our calculator, for example. So that's it, trillion. Let's go backwards. Billion, million, and thousands. Just four. Four new vocabulary words that will help you be able to count and say numbers into the trillions. Now, there's two more vocabulary words that I want us to learn today that are going to help us a lot. And you probably know this one already. It's called the comma. Comma. As we've looked at the numbers here on our screen, on our wall, you've probably noticed that there are a lot of commas in our number systems as we go into the thousands and the millions and the billions and the trillions. Commas are our friends. We use commas when we're writing out an essay. When we're writing words, we use commas to help break up a sentence. But we also use them in numbers to break up the number system. And they're really important to understand the purpose of a comma and how to use the comma when we're writing out numbers or looking at numbers. It gives us a big clue as to how we should say the number. Commas are our friends. We really need to understand commas and learn how to use them because they are very important. When you see just one comma in a group of numbers, just one comma, you know that we're talking about a number that is in the thousands. You see one comma? You're talking about 1,000. If you see two commas in a number, then you know that we are now into the millions. Millions. If you see three commas in a number, if you're looking on your calculator and you see three commas, well, you know that we're now into the billions. Billions. And if you see four commas, then you know that you need to start your number phrase in the trillions. Trillions. Now, the last vocabulary word that I want us to know today is called the digit. Have you heard of this word before? The digit. What is a digit? A digit is one number. It can be any number, 0 through 9. Any one of those is a digit. Now, people might want to know, well, what's the difference between a digit and a number? Well, it can be a little bit confusing because a digit is a number. It's one number. It's a one-digit number. But if you put another digit together so that you have two, then the two together are not considered a digit. The two together are considered a number. You can call it a two-digit number. That's okay. But when you put two numbers together, you can't just look at that and call it a digit. It's a number. So that's the difference between a digit and a number. A number has more than one digit. Let's take a look at some examples. We've, in our last lesson, learned up to 999. And, of course, the next number brings us into the thousand. 1,000. Easy when it's zeros, right? You just say 1,000. But what if they aren't zeros? How do we say the number then? Let's say we are looking at our calculator and we have the number 1348. How do we say that? Well, we know because of the comma that the 1 should be spoken as 1,000. So that's easy. 1,000. But how do we say the rest of the number? Well, because we know how to say the hundreds, it's easy, right? So we just say it 1,348. Because we already know how to say the tens, we can say 48. Because we already know how to say the hundreds, we know that it's 348. Easy. What if there are 2 digits before the comma? How do we say that? Well, what are 2 digits together? We learned that, was it last lesson? We call them the tens, right? So if we see a number like this, 21034, well, we just take a look at the number before the comma and just pretend that we're still back in the tens. And we say 21. 21, and the comma is what? Because there's only one, we know that it's 1,000, right? 21,000. And we already know how to say the rest because we know how to count into the hundreds. Now, this has a 0 before it, so it's a little bit tricky. Even though there's 3 digits there, and we would normally think in terms of 100, but because there's a 0, we skip the hundreds and go right to the tens again. So this would be 21,034. Because all we see here is the tens. The 0 is just a placeholder. It isn't into the hundreds yet. 21,034. What if you have 3 numbers before the comma? How would we say that? Well, how do we say the 3 numbers when they're together by themselves? That's right, we're talking about the hundreds. And so a number like this, that has 3 digits before the first comma, the 1,000 comma, would be read like this: 894. Here's that and again. Just like we used the and when we were talking about saying the hundreds, we use it here as well. 894,624. Notice that we're using and now twice as we read off this number, because there's really 2 groups of 100. There's 894,624. And so you can see how it works. Let's have you try a number next. If you saw this number on your calculator, how would you say it? Go ahead, say it out loud. That's right. This number is spoken as 38,000. There's 38 before the comma. 38,648. Let's try another one. How would you say this number? That's right. 458,324. Let's have you do one more. How would you say this number? Easy, right? 999,999. What's the next number after that? 1 million. That's right, 1 million. Now, how many commas do we have? How many commas are we working with? That's right, 2. If you glance at a number on a piece of paper or on your calculator and you see that there's 2 commas, well, you know that anything before that first comma has got to be expressed in the millions. So for example, if you see a number like this, how will you say it? Because there's 2 commas and there's a 1 before that first comma, well, you're going to start out by saying 1 million, right? 1 million. 1,486,384. Do you see how we're using those hundreds, those tens, and those ones that we already learned? How we're using them over and over again? And so that's why it's really important that you know all of your ones, you know all of your tens, you know all of your hundreds, because we will be using them over and over again as we move on into the millions, the billions, the trillions. All right, let's take a look at another one. What if you saw a number like this on your calculator? 36 million, right? Because there's a 36 before that first comma, and there's 2 commas, so we know that it's a million. 36,384,264. Let's have you do one. If you saw a number like this, how would you say it? Go ahead, say it out loud. That's right. It's 9,438,258. Try one more. How would you say this number? Again, it helps for you to say it out loud. You need to hear yourself saying those numbers. That's right. It's 349,269,431. See how we're now using and again? Now we're using it 3 times. And. It helps us break up those groups of 100. How about this number? Easy, right? 999,999,999. What comes after that? That's right. It's 1 billion. How many zeros do we have? 1 billion. It's 9 zeros. If you see a number and it has 9 zeros in it, you know that you're in the billions. How else do you know that you're in the billions? That's right. There's another comma. We now have 3 commas, so we know that anything that comes before that first comma needs to be expressed as a billion. Billion. So if you saw a number that looks like this, how would you say it? One billion 246,333,829. See how easy it is? Once you know about the commas, it becomes quite easy just to glance at a number and be able to know how to say it. How would you say this number? Easy, right? 999 billion, 999 million, 999,999. And what comes after that? What's the very next number? Well, that's right. It's 1 trillion. How many zeros in a trillion? That's right. 12 zeros. That's a lot of zeros. But you know, it's not very common that you'll be calculating a number and it shows up there and it shows up with all of these zeros in the number. 12 zeros. And so you need to know about the comma system. If there's 4 commas, you know right away that the number that is before that first comma needs to be expressed as a trillion. And so, for example, how would you say this number? Go ahead, try and say it out loud. It's a long number, isn't it? Takes a while to say it. 12 trillion 348 billion 246 million 248,642. So there you have it. You are now able to look at a number based on the commas and the number of digits. You will know how to say that right up into the trillions. Now, you might be asking me the question, how much is a gazillion? I've heard people talk about gazillions. Is that what comes after trillion? Is it 999 trillion and then we get to gazillion? Is that what a gazillion is? No, when people use the term gazillion, they're just usually talking about a very large number. They may not know the exact number. They just know that it's a huge number. And it's usually in reference to lots of money, big dollar amount, probably in the millions, maybe even in the billions, when they say, oh, that must have cost a gazillion dollars. That war that they fought for 12 years must have cost a gazillion dollars for the taxpayers. They don't know the exact amount. Maybe nobody knows the exact amount. And so we say, oh, that must have cost a gazillion dollars. And that's gazillion. Well, that's it for our lesson today on how to count into the trillions. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a like and share it with some of your friends that may also be learning English. Give us a comment below. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe to our channel here at YouTube. And that way, YouTube will let you know when we release our next video on numbers, all about the zero and the many different ways that people say the word zero. Nothing, goose egg, zip, nilch, zilch, nil. There's lots of different ways that people refer to the zero, and it's a good idea to learn all of those terms so you'll know what people are talking about when they talk about nothing. We'll see you here next time at Study English with Frank. So long for now.